Hyvää huomenta kaikille osallistujille. Täällä on äänessä Christopher Vanamo Veritakselta. Mä vastaan meidän kumppanikentästä ja tänään järjestetään tämmöinen Arrown kanssa yhteistyössä niin kumppaniesitys aiheena Veritaksen Insight-ratkaisut. Odotellaan vielä ihan hetki, jos tonne tulee vielä lisää osallistujia, niin aloitellaan sitten kohta. Ei nyt ehtii vielä täyttämään kahvikupposen tai hakemaan teehen vähän täydennystä, niin aloitetaan ihan hetken päästä. No niin, nyt näyttää siltä, että siellä rupeaa olemaan osallistujat linjoilla. Tosiaan oikein paljon tervetuloa, hyvää huomenta mun puolesta. Vanamo Christopher Veritakselta, mä vastaan meillä kumppaneista. Meillä on tänään mukana linjoilla myös niin Anu Honkanen tuolta Arrowin puolelta, markkinoinnin järjestäjä, joka tämän on webinaarin järjestänyt kokoon, kutsut lähettänyt ja niin poispäin. Meiltä myös mukana Ikäheimosen Aki ja vastaa meillä Veritaksella teknisestä puolesta ja sitten vierailijana puhujana niin Sebastian Molinder Ruotsista. Tarkoitushan oli alun perin järjestää tämmöinen kumppanitilaisuus tuolla Lucy in the Sky Keilaniemen tornin kattoravintolassa ja nauttia siellä aurinkoisesta kevätpäivän aamusta, aamiaisesta ja sen jälkeen muutamat esitykset siihen väliin ja lopetella kivasti puolen päivän lounaaseen, mutta tilanteet on pikkasen tässä kevään myötä muuttuneet ja nyt sitten kaikki ovat heränneet tähän aamuun syömällä aamupuuron kotona ja tekevät etäkonttorista käsin töitä, niin taistellen näkymätöntä vihollista vastaan. Ja tämmöinen näkymätön vihollinen meillä on vähän agendalla tänäänkin tässä näin, eli miten sieltä omasta datasta niin löytää se näkymätön vihollinen, on se sitten ransomware tai on se sitten niin riskejä vääränlaisen datan säilyttämisestä tai on se sitten riskejä niin ennakoimattomien kustannusten kasvusta. Mutta pidemmittä puhetta mä siirrän puheenvuoron tuonne Sebastianille, niin päästään aloittamaan. So, morning Sebastian, we are ready for you to start. So, feel free.
Thank you, Christopher. Thank you. So, good morning all, and welcome to this morning's webinar. My name is Sebastian Molinder, and I will be your presenter today. I assume, since my Finnish is not that very good, that Christopher went through how you ask questions. And feel free to ask questions anytime you feel, and I will either come back to them at the end or take them as we go, depending on what the question is. But let's start off by quickly going over who we as Veritas are. Veritas is a global company. We have our headquarters in Santa Clara, California. We have around 7,000 employees worldwide, spanning 35 countries. We have over 50,000 customers, and we are being trusted by 86% of the Fortune 500. So we are supporting a lot of big companies and organizations, and have been doing for a long while. We were founded in almost 30 years ago, or over 30 years ago, depending on how you look at it. We've been the leader in Gartner's Magic Quadrant for data center backup and recovery solutions 14 times in a row, and we are also we've also been the market leader in archiving for over 20 years. So we have a lot of experience doing what we're doing, and we feel very comfortable in our space. So a lot of our competitors might talk about us being legacy or being old isn't a good thing in this day and age with IT technology, but we are very confident in ourselves, and we see ourselves as being experienced. So we have a lot of experience working with a lot of different companies, helping them with a lot of different problems, and we are still doing it. I will then go over and talk a bit about today's challenges and trends that we are seeing, and how Veritas is is positioned against them, or a position to help you against them. We are seeing a lot of increased complexity, which means that we are now not only having our own data center, we are having our on-prem data center, we're having a private cloud, a public cloud, we're having hyper-converged infrastructure, we're using containers, there's a lot of different deployment models, and we are often spreading that out over many different product solutions and applications. And this is increasing complexity. It's getting harder and harder to manage. We're also seeing exponential data growth. This isn't something that's new. It's something that has been going on for a long, long time. But it has reached such enormous volumes that it's starting to be a real headache for companies. By 2025, IDC predicts that there will be around 100, let's see here, I need to move some stuff anyway, around 175 zettabytes, which is a lot of data. And if you're seeing growth in around 30 to 40% year on year, that is a huge headache for things like backup and making sure that you have enough storage and making sure that's managed properly. And if you have a disaster, making sure that you can recover in a sensible way. We're also seeing an increase in threats. Most, the things that never go away are natural disasters, and also the thing that we are going through now, which is a pandemic, but it's a threat because a lot of companies that are maybe short on staff or people working from home, or this whole situation has put a real edge on how things are being done. So this is one of the threats. Another thing is ransomware, which is increasing year over year as well, and it's not going away. So making sure that companies can deal with these different type of threats, whether they're environmental or a pandemic in this case, if there's human error or malware or something that gets in your way, companies need to deal with that as well. And this is an ever increasing threat as well. And last but not least, more and stricter regulations. We have GDPR, which has had a huge impact on a lot of companies in the way that they manage and deal with personal information. But there are also other things that we are seeing that increasing. We have increased financial regulations if you're in that vertical, in that type of business. There's also more freedom of information type of requests that companies and organizations and most obviously government and public companies need to deal with. So in being able to respond in a timely manner, and also making sure that you are compliant, given all the other challenges that you have with increased complexity and exponential data growth, and then the threats is a real hassle. So Veritas solution to this is what we call an enterprise data services platform, where we help you. We want you to standardize on a platform that can help you, no matter what infrastructure you have, or if you're on-prem, off-prem, if you want to build your own cloud, if your applications are up and where your applications are running, we want to make sure that you can manage it all in a good way. So the enterprise data services platform is standing on 3 legs. Availability, that makes sure that your applications are always on, up and running 24/7. If something goes down, you can quickly get it up and running again. Then we have protection, which is all about making sure that your data is protected, of course. If something happens and you need to recover from a disaster, you can do that in a good way and in a quick way, and making sure that you get back to a working state, no matter if you need to move to another data center or if you just need to get it back to a working state. And then, of course, we have the insights, which helps you understand your information, understand your data, and help you make good decisions. Making sure that you are not overprotected, making sure that the right types of information is protected, and that you are storing the right type of data in the right type of place. And as you may have figured out, this session will continue on in the insights part of the portfolio. So the products and solutions that we will speak about is covered within this leg. So this all comes down to if you don't know what you have, you don't really know if you are secured and compliant. If you don't have the complete view, if you don't see everything, then you cannot be sure that you are making the right decisions and that you are compliant with every regulations and the laws that you need to be compliant to. And you also don't know if you are secure, if you have the right type of security deployed in the right way. So this is hopefully in the end you will see that Veritas can help you with this. And speaking about what you know about what you have, we did a survey and we did a report a couple of years ago, but it's still relevant, and I think we will release an updated version here in the next coming months, where we went out to organizations and asked them, what do you know about your data? How do you define your data, and how do you actually know what the contents are? And it showed that around 14% across EMEA companies are business critical. So a very small portion of the data is actually something that's being used actively, is something that drives the business forward, is something that helps you as an organization. About 32%, or a third, is what we call redundant, obsolete, and trivial. Information that we know we have, but it's duplicate data, it's old data, it's things that don't really provide any value, but it's still residing there. And then we have the last chunk, which is dark data, data that you don't know where it is, who owns it, why you have it, what it contains, how long it's been there. You just know that it's X amount of terabytes sitting on your storage somewhere. It's what you see when your disk space fills up and you need to buy more, or the backups are running full and you don't know why. That's because of dark data. And this is a huge problem because, as we talked about earlier, things are getting more complex. We don't know, it's getting harder to manage. We have exponential data growth, and if we have a 30 or 40% year-over-year growth and half of that data is dark and we don't know what it is, it's a huge overhead. And the reason, I think, for why we've come to this is that we have mostly focused on the volume of data. We have focused on managing the terabytes and petabytes and gigabytes of the data, and that's how we have. That's how we try and make our policies. That's how we try to. That's how we are thinking about data in volume, when we instead should think about the 3 billion files that makes up a petabyte, because that's where you have the most risk. That's where you have the true cost and where you can gain the most reward. Because if you start handling data in the right way, it will be a much more efficient way. It will actually you will reap more benefits than just handling the petabytes and terabytes. And this is starting to, if we add on the compliance parts and the regulations, it's starting to gain some traction, especially GDPR, where we have seen some really big fines in the last year with British Airways, Google, and Marriott getting some pretty big fines. But in the Nordics as well, we've seen some fines getting handed to them. So we have a municipality in Norway that got a 170,000 euro fine. In Sweden, we have an information company, kind of like the phone book, but on the internet, that had too much information, though they got a fine. In Denmark, we had a furniture company getting a 200,000 euro fine. I couldn't find anything in Finland, so I think you guys are doing pretty well, or either that or something is about to happen. But good on you until now at least. And also in the finance sector, we have MiFID II, who's also started getting some big numbers out there, with the Goldman Sachs and UBS getting fined in the last year for not complying with those with the regulations. And we're also hearing from a lot of public organizations and public institutions that there is an issue dealing with freedom of information in a timely manner. So if someone asks for a record, or if someone asks for communication or something other or public information, they're having a hard time keeping up with the request and getting those requests back to the person who asked for it in a good way. And that is because they don't know where it is. They don't know what they have. So it's a lot of overhead to actually go through and find everything. So the daily challenges that the companies are facing are a number of these questions. And I think that by the end of the webinar, I will show you how you are able to answer some of them. Things like when will we run out of storage on a holistic level? Which clients that my backup software know about, and which clients doesn't my backup software know about? Are my cloud assets protected in a good way? Do I have orphan capacity that can be reclaimed or repurposed? Which cloud workloads can be decommissioned to reduce costs? So around the infrastructure, getting answers to some of these questions is really key in order to manage it in a better way. And when it comes to the information, do I know how much of my data is stale and isn't being used? How much is not business related? Do I have remains of a ransomware attack still on my system? Are we still having encrypted files somewhere in our environment? How much personal information do I have, and where is that located? Who are the actual data owners? And do we have sensitive or classified information on open shares where everyone in the company or even external people can access it? So in order for you to be able to answer these questions, we have three solutions that I will talk about today. First one is Aptare IT Analytics, which will help you answer the infrastructure part of the questionnaire. So things like, do I have unclaimed storage that I can repurpose? When will I run out of storage? Are my services and applications protected? And how are they protected? We will talk about Information Studio, which will give you data visibility and making sure that you can take a quick look at your data and understand it in a better way to see, where do I have personal information? How much of it is non-business related, and how much of it is stale? And finally, we will talk about data insight, which can help you with who are the actual owners of the data, who had access to a specific part of my environment during a specific day, and also are the users behaving in a good way, or are they putting my company and organization to risk? So starting with Aptare IT Analytics, this is a company that Veritas bought a year ago, or we launched it a year ago. So it's pretty new to us. We've had some really big successes in the Nordics, helping customers to better understand their IT infrastructure. And in a nutshell, what we do is that we can take any storage, any cloud, and any backup, connect that to a dashboard or a service, extract metadata and reports from these sources, and then present them to you in an interesting way. So we collect data. So we can collect them from on-prem, in the cloud. We connect them from applications, backups. We connect them from hosts or VMs, networks, switches, and storage to get a map over the infrastructure. We then correlate all this information so it can track full end-to-end relationships. So we can see which VM is using which LUN and going through what switch, and is that also showing up in the backup. We then present them to you in reports or dashboards so that you can get actionable insights to plan and optimize capacity, mitigate risk, streamline compliance, and identify and reduce IT costs. So we collect a lot of data and we present it to you in a way that makes sense and makes sure that you can take action on it. So what does it look like? This is one of the views, and I will share these views, or I will talk about them as they are presented in the application. So this is a dashboard that you can set up. Everything in regards to reporting and dashboards are completely customizable. So if you are in a position where you're an IT or storage admin or operations admin, then you care about how much data is being used where. You can see a capacity meter up at the top. So you can see how much my SAN is being used, how much my object storage is being used, how much of my NAS is being used. So you get a complete view over your entire storage infrastructure. It doesn't matter who the vendor is. It doesn't matter if it's on a SAN or a NAS or where it resides. You get one dashboard, excuse me, that shows you everything. And then you can, of course, drill down into this from that, so you can see, okay, if I want to dive more into my IBM storage, then what would that look like? You can have one view that shows you all your backups. Now this is just showing a net backup, but in the job status, I think. But on the right-hand side, you have some graphs showing you what are the job errors for my different types of backup solutions. So if you have 2 or 3 or more different backup solutions deployed in your environment, you can have one dashboard that tells you, are my jobs being successful? Am I meeting my SLAs? And how is that? Is there one solution that gives you more errors than the other one? And also seeing things like, are my backups running? Did they finish like they should? Are they the size that they should be? Because sometimes you get a backup and the job says that, oh, everything is fine. It's a green check mark. But in this dashboard, you can see that the backup that used to be 1 terabyte is now 50 kilobytes. So something perhaps is wrong. And then you have a lot of different reports that you can run, and these are fully customizable. We have a lot of them built in. You can build your own, and we also have a repository where you can go and search for a specific report and take that into your own dashboard. So if you have a really specific need that you want to correlate one type of information with another one, let's say that you want to have, I want to have all my VMs that are not backed up. So you can compare or correlate the VMs directly from your virtual environment, and then check that with your backup reporting and see, do I have any servers that haven't been backed up? Or as I said, do I have unclaimed storage? Do I have virtual machines that are using disk space, but they haven't been powered on or used in a long time? Or they are being online and running, but there's no IO, they're not doing anything. Is that something that we can power down and then reclaim the storage and use it for something else? So this is I don't do this it's not fair to try and talk about this in a couple of minutes. It's something that we can talk about for hours and hours, and depending on the needs and your environment, you can get some really good information from their infrastructure point of view. And you can also, look at it from not a report, but go straight to the source. So look at in this case, we're looking at pure storage flash arrays. So I can go into that and I can see, how much of that is being used. I can also from here go in and see which LUNs are connected, which virtual machines, which applications are using the storage that is being shared by this array. What are the IOPS, and everything is consolidated and used in one place. So this is really something that if you are struggling to get a good view of your infrastructure, reach out to us and talk to us, because we can absolutely help you getting the complete view. We will now change over and talk about the data part of view. So Aptare is, as I said, it's not fair to talk about it in a couple of minutes, but in the time that we have, that we have to make do. So I will now talk on the data part of the question. So who owns what data? Where do I have data? Where do I have personal data residing in some share somewhere? And to be able to do this in a good way, we need to be able to classify information and actually look at the contents to make sure that we don't just look at this is a text file, but understanding what's the value of the text file, or whatever it might be. So we have our own classification engine that has a number of different components that combined makes for a pretty cool tool where we can do things like named entity extraction. So understanding if we are talking about a person, a company, or a place, we can identify the language, of course, so you can see that is it written in Finnish, is something in Chinese, do we have a passage with, or is the document containing multiple type of languages? We can look at similarity between documents. There's a lot of things in this engine that helps you build and create policies and to be able to classify it in a good way. So out of the box, we will provide over 700 patterns to detect regulated data. We have 120 plus pre-configured policies. We have personal PII detection for over 70 countries, which includes all European countries. So we have specific policies for Finland, Denmark, Sweden, Poland, Germany, all the European countries, and some of the other countries that are regulated as well, that are built in. And of course, we allow you to customize and build your own. So if we take, this is what helps you moving from just having that dark data, that big blob of grayness, and actually start to color it some way and make some quicker decisions. So if we can classify what data is relevant and not relevant, we can decide quickly on whether to delete it. Does it contain intellectual property? Maybe we need to store it in a more secure way, or have a longer retention period on it. Is there some things that look weird that we might need to flag to HR or some other entity for investigation? Does it contain financial information? Everything this, you can start to really paint a picture of what your data contents. So if we look at what actually comes in a classification policy, we have a number of different policies. As I said, we have over 120 spread out through corporate compliance, financial regulations, health regulations, international regulations, personal information, special category, etc. And as I said, we do have country-specific policies. So looking at this, we have the Finland personal data policy and what's that made of, and how that is made up. So it looks for things like date of birth, email address, and post address in a combination, as well as credit card numbers, international bank account numbers, Finland-specific driver's license, Finland passport number, identity codes, and health insurance IDs and tax ID numbers. So these are delivered to you out of the box. as I said already, we have country-specific ones. So these were the ones that would be specific for Finland, but they are also, if you have data from other countries, we have similar policies for those as well. And these policies come with different types of confidence. So you can always, on the built-in policies, you can adjust the confidence level in order to make sure that you get the right type of hits. So in a high confidence level, you would see that it's checksum validation for a credit card number or a personal identification number, and you also have some terms around it that shows that it's really what you're looking for, and then you can lower that confidence level to where it's basically just the right numbers. And then of course you can also create your own, either through text regular expressions, and similar documents. But as I said, we also have other things like language detection and things like that you can put into a policy. So there is some intelligence and machine learning going on behind the scenes. So using this engine, we are able to give you some really interesting details and really interesting context in what we're about to talk about now, which is Information Studio and how you can get visibility into your unstructured data. What Information Studio does is, in a bit, very similar to what we talked about with Aptare. We have a bunch, some data sources that we connect to. We connect all the data to the solution, which in this case is Information Studio. We collect metadata and classify the information that we find. We make sure that you can find the data, so it's made searchable, and you can do reportings and quickly visualize the data that we found in order to make some good decisions. And then you're able to act on the data. So do you want to, is this something that you just want to report on, or is this something that you want to delete? You can do that from one GUI. So what do we mean by saying give you visibility and data visualization? This is what we are talking about, which is Information Studio as you log in. So as you can see here, I have 2 dots on my screen, which is my current data center setup. So I have one in Copenhagen, and I have
Nyt tuntuu olevan ääni kateessa. Sebastian, can you hear us? Nope. Näyttää siltä, että me hävitettiin Sebastianin ääni jonnekin. Yritetään saada se tuolta takaisin jollain keinoin. Hi Sebastian, can you hear us? We seem to lose your voice.
Mä lähetin hänelle viestin, hän
Joo, mä
ilmeisesti on
laitoin
lukenut
kanssa
sen.
justiinsa.
Joo.
Mä yritin tuossa myytätä ja unmyytätäkin hänet, mutta se ei näköjään palauttanut yhteyttä.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, now
Yes.
you're back.
Yes, we can.
Okay. For how long was I gone?
2
Because I saw
slides,
that.
I would say.
A few.
1
Okay.
minute.
Oh no. I just saw the.
2 slides.
Let's go back and I'll make a quick back. So
One more.
That one.
Okay, you can.
that one.
No,
Okay.
Next one.
Yeah, this
next
one.
This one. Perfect.
Next one.
Or
Next
next one.
Okay.
Next one. Next one. Yeah, this one.
This one. This one.
This one. Perfect. Okay.
Yes.
So I'll start over. Sorry about that. It's that was my fault. I think my headset disconnected for some reason. Anyway, so I was talking about Information Studio and how we can give you that visibility into your data. And this is how we present that data, what we talk about when we talk about visibility, data visibility, giving you one view that quickly shows you how much data you have and where you have it. So on this map, I have two data centers. So one in Copenhagen and one in Västerås. At the top, I can see how much of this data I have in total. I can see how much of my data is orphaned or not associated with a specific user or a user. I can see how much of my data is stale, which means that the data hasn't been touched or used or modified in a set amount of time. We also see at the far right how much of my data is non-business. So if I'm not using, or if I don't really work with media files, so video and audio type of data, I can quickly, put that in the non-business bucket, and I can get at a glance an idea of how much of my data is non-business related. If I was to click on any of the dots or just dive into the dashboard, I can get a better view of some more details. So as I said at the top, I still have all of my big buckets. So how much total data, how much of it is orphaned, stale, non-business. You also see a number here, which is the cost. So I can set up a cost per year for my different type of sources. So I can have one cost associated with one file server or share somewhere in my on-prem environment. I can have another cost for my cloud deployments, and I can have other costs spread out on to make sure that this number gives me a rough estimate of what the cost associated with the bucket is. So how my stale data, for example, is costing me 772 krona, which isn't a lot, but at least it gives me an idea of how much money this is costing me. At the bottom, we have all of the quick filters that you can apply. So you can filter on locations or storage content sources, of course. You can also filter on sizes and ages and stuff like that. And this would affect the data that you would see here. So you see all the locations, the content sources, data owners, the repositories. We see the data sizes, data ages, and of course the item type. So this is just metadata, but it's presented in a way that makes it easy to read, easy to understand, and easy to take action on. And then we have, of course, the classification that we talked about earlier. So this shows me how much of my data is tagged with different type of rules and with different type of tags. So I can quickly see here that I have 4.5 gigabytes of data that's classified with both personally identifiable information, so PII, and also authentication. We also have some intellectual property and credit card numbers that has been tagged and showed up here. So if I want to know, okay, where is this personally identifiable information hiding? Where is this PII? I can either just click on that link, or I can go with the filters down at the bottom and just select PII, and the dashboard will update. I don't think you noticed, but in the background it updated to show that how much of my data is residing on-prem, how much of it is in OneDrive, who are the data owners that has access to this PII information, what repositories, so where are they stored, how old are they, etc., etc. So you change the metadata and you aggregate all the information together to give you some better understanding. So if you want to know more specifically, okay, the files that have PII tagged with them, what are they? You can go into a list view to actually get those files, get those file names and some more details. And if you look at the top, we even have a search field. So as I said, we do have named entity recognition, so we can understand what is a person, what is an organization, and what is a place. Heads up on that, it doesn't work great for Finnish, but it would work great for English-sounding names. So probably you're in the good, Christopher, but I don't think Aki would be found this way. But it gives you a good way to find organizations and places, and making sure that you can search. And anything that has been tagged can also be searched. So if I have a specific passport number that I am looking for, and I know that it's in my data set, I can just search for that passport number, or I can search for some other type of information, a project number or other tagged information. And then on the right side, I can also get some more details of what the contents are. And then when I have, I've searched for my information, I found what I'm looking for to do something with, I can go on the actions button up at the left or up at the right and export the data, and that would give me a data file containing the results. Now this could be done on a recurrence or on a run now basis. So you can do it as a one-off, or you can have it scheduled. So you can have a report every week with how much personal information is being stored where, how much data are my users consuming, how much data is on OneDrive, do we have files on OneDrive that shouldn't be there, etc., etc. So you can start to really run these reports on a regular basis to drive your decisions and drive your policies. These are the sources that we support. So we do have a bunch of cloud sources like Box and Google Drive, Amazon S3 buckets, SharePoint Online. We do have OneDrive. So we do support both cloud and on-prem. And we support most general file storage as well. And if you have a good eye, you would also see that we have things like Microsoft Exchange, Gmail, we have Oracle databases, open text. So this is that we can not just look at unstructured data, but we can actually pull in some structured data as well. to give you an overview of where are my databases located? How big are they in the same dashboard? Because a lot of the times these are stored on the unstructured part as well. So if you're looking at a file storage, it might be interesting to find databases, for example. But we will not look straight into it. And at the bottom here, you see that we also show Veritas Net Backup. So we cannot just look at the file sources. If you are a Net Backup customer, we can actually go in and look in the Net Backup catalog as well. So you don't have to deploy anything. You don't have to go out and scan your primary data sources. You can just get that information from your backup. And these are the sources that we support for classification at the moment. So it's all the general file storage in OneDrive. Okay, so let's move on to the risk part and finding out how to mitigate risk and to understand some of the user behavior, and who has access. And that is being done with Data Insight. And Data Insight works in the same way as Information Studio, really. You have your sources, you connect that to the application, that collects a bunch of metadata, but also it collects user activity. So that's the key differentiator here. We can look at user activity in combination with file metadata. We then give you the possibility to go in and make reports and search on this, of course, and then you act on it in order to either remediate maybe some user rights, or to find risky behavior that you need to take action on. So while it looks in the beginning like they do the same thing, as you can see, the dashboard for Data Insight looks quite different. And that's because it's more of a risk mitigation and security user type of tool. So we have a concept called around risk. So you will see some yellow bars here and some other smaller numbers here, which is associated with how much risk is associated with a specific user or a specific part of my environment. And that comes down to, do we have sensitive files or classified files stored here? How many users have access, and how are the users behaving? Are they following a baseline, and is everything pretty much the same, or are there weird spikes with different user behavior, or is this changing rapidly? So this would find something like a user going on and copying and extracting lots of data. It would find something like a ransomware attack where an infected user goes on and start to encrypt a lot of data. You would see a spike in the risk. We also give you a pretty robust reporting engine. So all the data that we collect, and I will show you some more details around what the data that you can find is, but everything is based around reports. And as you can see, it's not as straightforward as Information Studio is, where you just log on and then you see everything from the start. Here you have to be a bit more smart, where you go in and you tell the product either to run any of the standard reports, but you can also go in and create your own in a SQL query type of language. So you would specify, I want this data and this data and this data and this information in one report, and then you can work some magic around it as well in order to get the exact results that you are looking for. So it's kind of like a hybrid between what we talked about with Aptare, being able to pull different types of data together in one report, and Information Studio, which gives you the visibility part. So this would give you access to show me users that had accessed sensitive data in the last week, or what data has been accessed by a specific user. It can also show you old files that contains some other criteria. If we dive deeper into what type of information you can extract, you see on the right that we have some information. So in this case, we have selected a share, and we want to look at the contents and some details around that. So we see how much data is being stored in this part of the environment. We see who the owner is, and we see how we have decided that that user is the owner. So in this case, Tamara Kramer is the one with the most activity in this part of the environment, so she is the inferred owner. So and this is really useful because some of the time you have the admins as being put as the user, or there are other the person that created the data and worked with the data is no longer with the company, but is being used by their department or other people in the organization. And this inferred ownership would make sure that that you can still associate a user with the data. Then you'd see some more statistics around how much of the files are active, inactive, kind of like what you could do in a easier or quicker way in Information Studio. We see the risk score. So on a scale of 1 to 100, how many users have access, how much data is being actively used, and do we have classified or sensitive information in this part of the environment. Looking at the pie chart here, we can see what users are active in this part of the environment. So who has put in the most, who is using the files in this directory. So we have a number of different users being active, and we can also look at the exact events. So we can see what user deleted or renamed or moved the file in this part of the environment on a specific day. So if you have a data leak or other situation where you need to find out who had access to a specific file or specific type of information in a specific date range, this is something that we could help you with. This also means that we can start to do some interesting stuff around user behavior. This is what we call a social network map. Each of the colored groups represent users that behave in the same way, and that we can see how they are connected to other users. So if we look at a share, we can see the different type of clusters or departments or groups of users and how they interact with the other type of users. So here you would find, for example, users that has full access but don't do anything. Users that have full access and access everything. Users that are only active in a small part of the environment. Users that are like an admin, for example, that touches a lot of data that are associated with a lot of different departments or a lot of different users. So this gives you also some insights into how are my users actually using my storage or my files. And this is all, of course, if we go back to the reporting part, all of this information is available in the reports. So you can get very specific in what type of information you want to correlate with other type of information. And then you can, of course, schedule it and or run it as a one-time thing as well. Data Insight don't have as broad of support as Information Studio has, but as I said, it has a different use case. So we don't, for example, put in unstructured or structured data sources here. So we don't have the exchanges or the databases here, but we do still have cloud sources in terms of Box and SharePoint Online, OneDrive. We do have SharePoint on-prem. We have a bunch of different file storages, and we also support your generic CIFS or NFS share. Looking at classification, we can do that on all of the regular file sources. And that is hopefully that has given you some information and insights into how you can get visibility, uncover risk, and in the end, take action on the data that you have and make better decisions moving forward. And as I said, we do have a lot of customers worldwide using our products, and we do have a lot of knowledge, and we are a trusted advisor in many of these companies as well. So we work with the big companies, but also, of course, with the smaller companies as well. And as we are an American company, this is almost mandatory for us to show. With that said, do you have any questions? Feel free to raise your hand and unmute, or Christopher will gladly unmute you, or you can type it into the question box, and we do have 3 or 4 minutes in order to answer any of them.
No niin, sit vaan rohkeasti kättä ylös ja kysymyksiä esittämään. Tai sitten sinne kenttään, niin kuin Sebastian tuossa jo mainitsi. Mielellään vastataan kaiken karvaisiin kysymyksiin. Meillähän on tulossa nyt sitten vielä seuraava webinaari 12.5. jossa aiheena sitten niin NetBackup-uutiset. Aki kertoo, mitä uutta on NetBackupiin tulossa, ja siellä on muun muassa uusia appliance-ratkaisuja niin saatavilla. Ja sitten mä tuun kertomaan niin kumppaniohjelman muutoksista 12.5. Mutta vielä jos on kysymyksiä, niin we can still ask questions from Sebastian if there are any questions. So feel free.
Of course.
So
There don't
it
seem
looks
to be
there are
no
there
questions.
don't seem to be questions. No.
Yeah.
So what
Again,
I just said was that
apologies for losing the audio there for a bit, but otherwise I hope that you did find this webinar interesting and that it gave you some good information and good insights into how we can help you. And feel free to contact me if you have any more questions. And as Christopher probably said as well, we reach out to them, the guys in Finland as well.
I think there is still one question from Tommi Helman. So if I unmute Tommi, let's see if Tommi has a question. No niin, Tommi, nyt sulla pitäisi olla audio päällä.
Kuuluuko mut?
Kuuluu kyllä.
Joo, ei mulla ollut kyllä mitään niin kuin semmoista kysyttävää, että tainnut olla pieni väärinymmärrys.
Okay, so I think that was actually related to the loss of audio in that case.
Yes, that was the loss of the audio.
Okay, so there are no questions. So thank you very much, Sebastian, for your presentation. And we will see and hear next time on 12th of May in our next series of WebEx. And Aki will be presenting the NetBackup and NetBackup news, and I will be presenting the partner program changes. So thank you all, and remember to wash your hands, and hopefully we will see you next time. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.